and welcome back to the Lowdown. My name is Ella Mitchell, and I will be your host and producer for this episode of the Lowdown. So, I've been cleaning out for summer vacation coming up. I just finished my final, so I was like, gotta get some cleaning done, and I found a lot of interesting artifacts in my desk. But what's even more interesting are the packages that my members made for this episode. So I really hope you guys stick around to watch them. They did an amazing job interviewing local artists, local jazz performances, and even some more watercolor how-tos are coming up. So please stick around to watch those. They're doing an amazing job. For our first segment, we're going to check in with Mackenzie, who had the opportunity to interview with Maddie McSweeney, who was a former member of the show, who had an exhibit over in Cleveland at Kink Contemporary called Moonbelly. Check it out.
On April 5th, Maddie McSweeney, Meyer School of Art student at the University of Akron, had the opening night for their solo exhibition Moonbelly. Maddie is a conceptual and interdisciplinary artist, and their work delves into deeply personal narratives encompassing childhood, gender, sexuality, and collective intimacy. Closing night for the exhibition will be May 3rd at Kink Contemporary. Now, take a look at Moonbelly and learn more about Maddie's creative journey.
I started developing it this year. I was working on my honors project, Simply Butter One Pat at a Time, last year, and that was a really lengthy, extensive project. And I already had the space for my solo exhibition at Kink, so I kind of jumped right into ideation right out of finishing my honors project. So everything happened very, very fast. I was already thinking about everything in it, but it wasn't until I finished my project before that kind of dictated to me what direction I needed to go into. I always wanted it to be a multimedia experience. My one performance piece in Moonbelly, the Houdini kiss, which was the kissing box, is actually the same frame as the butter that I used in my honors project. I just made it a bit shorter and obviously changed the material. But I always had a fixation on like romance and sexual intimacy, and those were forms of intimacy that were lacking from the butter project. I was looking at different forms of intimacy, so I wanted to investigate how to push intimacy in a different direction. Once I started writing my script for the film a bit more and started filming that, it became kind of clear to me that I wanted the installation of the space to be connected to the film. Almost like I or the participants in the space were acting out scenes from the film, so everything's just kind of interconnected. Something that I feel like paintings or even sculptural work lack is that it's not as, I don't know, not that it's not intimate, but I find that like interactive work and performance work, it's an ephemeral experience. It only happens one moment in time. Even if you try it out again, it'll be different. So something about that is even more like invigorating and intimate to me than something kind of stagnant like a painting or a sculpture. I still love those forms of art and I still make them, but to me, I find that pushing the physical boundaries for participants more effectively breaks down like emotional barriers, and that's kind of what my whole show and kind of my concept is about, blurring boundaries between physical and emotional. I definitely am interested in more performance work. It's newer to me, and The way I performed for my opening reception was the first time that I've ever done something like that. Not being in a box, like kind of hidden away from people, which that's still appealing to me. But I've had a lot of new ideas about performance things that just continue to push myself to get out of my comfort zone more and more. And even though it's really scary, I don't know, for some reason I feel the need to put myself on display like that. Something about interactive or performative work is you're not really going to know fully what the work is until you have people interact with it, until you have it on display in some way. So it's not like I can just sit alone in my studio looking at a painting, reflecting on it, doing research that way. I kind of need people interact with it and get feedback and like see the way people interact with it in order to know whether or not it's functioning the way I want it to. I would hope that people can take something away from my art that maybe they can reflect on their own emotional experiences and memories more, or they can connect with other people more. I really like creating the environment to form a new type of relationship with maybe a stranger, like even somebody that you've known for a long time, but you've gone through this experience together that you wouldn't have been able to in any other environment, and now you have like a new type of relationship. It was a lot of fun to make. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it was just fun to get weird and get vulnerable, and I feel like there's a lot of safe art out there, and I would just encourage people to be open-minded and just enter anything with a present body and mind, and yeah.
Awesome job, Mackenzie. We're super happy that Maddie had a super successful exhibit, and we're so proud of them for the work they did on the show and beyond the show. Next, we're going to check in with Adam and Caden and see what jazz performances they caught at Blu Jazz downtown.
In a world where third spaces can feel like they're sort of dying out, Blu Jazz is a breath of fresh air. With their weekly jam night that boasts free admission every Tuesday, they make good on their goal of creating an accessible live jazz destination. Other shows come with a reasonable price tag, usually ranging from $10 to $20. Altogether, Blu Jazz fills the niche of a spot that feels like a passionate celebration of the arts. We might have a type.
On April 9th, we went to check out one of their Blues Day Tuesday Blues Jam Nights, where they invite anyone who can play an instrument or the blues to join the house band in a jam. Blues isn't the only thing that you can look forward to hearing. Any jazz or music lovers will find Blu Jazz to be an awesome spot to spend a few hours on a Tuesday night.
Awesome job, Adam and Caden. You guys did a great job recording those performances. Next, we're going to check in with Tyler and Hayden in their interview with Matt Miller. Matt Miller worked with both Dawn Drum and Flock of Moons, which is the perfect culmination of both Tyler and Hayden's previous packages. Check it out.
Recently, I was invited to the Summit Art Space to come and record the exhibition of one of Akron's top local artists, Matt Miller. The exhibition, titled Happiness and the End of the World, is a sprawling, vibrantly colored look into Miller's creative past as well as his future. Each psychedelic piece works as a window into the artist's mind, or even some of his inspirations. The art can range from moody and soulful pieces like Cloudy to movie monster portraits like Parts Work, Just Looking for Love, and All About Boof. But it's not just static art that Miller has on display. In a darkened room of the exhibition, you can find pieces of Miller's that show off some mixed media art. Here, the art moves and draws itself before your eyes, which works extremely well with the psychedelic style. In general, I was pretty amazed by the level of talent I saw at the exhibition. Miller does fantastic work, and if any of the pieces look familiar, that's because Miller did the artwork for Flock of Moons' latest album, Emanon, which I reviewed in my last segment. We were lucky enough to be able to sit down with and interview Miller about himself and his process. So, thank you for coming, by the way.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, first question.
Sure.
Your art can evoke a very spiritual and kind of psychedelic sort of feeling. What kind of artistic process is necessary for that kind of art?
Sure. A lot of it does start very internally meditative, especially this most recent show. It was me working through some hardships and really looking inward to find, the parts of self I needed to move forward, and that is spiritual in a sense, Actually, yeah, in every sense, it's pretty spiritual, and definitely a bit of psychedelics in there.
All right. Well, that actually takes me into my next question.
All right.
I was wondering, the name of the show was Happiness and the End of the World. And I was wondering if you could explain the meaning of that.
Sure. It came from, again, that process of facing hardship and looking inward. How do you overcome these things? And in my experience, it is from the negative, the hard things, the ends of the world,
right,
that really bring about the biggest growth and the most potential for change. And so that's really, the show was kind of exploring that idea. Life leads to death, and death leads back to life. In a cosmic scale, but also in a personal, day-to-day kind of way.
Right. Wow. So, you're experienced with the use of mixed media, I noticed, in that one room. So what are the sort of differences and challenges in making that kind of art?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff with this show was more experimental for me. I've always been a very analog maker, but I also grew up with my Saturday morning cartoons and playing with that idea of adding some movement to it, is really where those came from. But it was a technical kind of jump for me, even as more simple as some of them can be. Self-taught on the digital end, I started using digital a couple years ago to make my design work easier for clients and stuff, so I wasn't having to hand draw every edit and redraw it if they wanted to see a different color and so on. And that kind of led to me kind of loving the process of digital. It's pretty endless, the possibilities, and so it's more a struggle for me to keep my focus at that point, and this is what I'm trying to do instead of getting carried away with the endless possibilities of things.
All right. So you mentioned Saturday morning cartoons earlier there, and that actually does lead into my next question too. So your website mentions you have a lot of sort of, I guess, inspiration from mythology, folklore, and comic books.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how those inspirations maybe played into your art as well.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, mythology in general is an attempt to explain the human condition and the things we all go through that are maybe more universal for everybody, and so when it came to this show and my own kind of hero's journey, I did lean heavy on old mythology and the symbolism of different cultures and religions, and they're really, they're ancient tales of the human condition that still apply to us today if you take the time to look at them a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of noticed that too with some of your pieces of art. I liked a lot of the pieces that were along that one wall towards the back. It had the actual title.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time looking at those pieces in particular.
Did you have a favorite?
A favorite in particular, I looked a lot at the pieces that were in the 20s as well. And I know that was towards that same kind of area, but I can't remember or think of any specific names.
Yeah, hey, that's right.
And then last but not least, I noticed you've also done a lot of stuff around Akron in general.
Sure, yeah.
Is there anything that you're currently working on or are working on in the future that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I just yesterday morning finished up a set of murals for the Green Dragon Inn over on East Market, the really cool board game bar. Upstairs in the main bar area, did the whole back wall of a dragon burning a village. And then yesterday I went back and did kind of like the welcome sign in the lobby.
That's awesome.
And I believe we'll have a little bit of a party for that in June. I believe it's June 14th, which is also the final weekend of my show. So
all right, I think this should be out by then, so hopefully people will be able to go.
Heck yeah.
All right, well, that's basically all the questions I have.
Hey.
Are there anything else you'd like to say?
No. Check out the show. It's up until June 15th is the last day, and Summit Art Space is open to the public Fridays and Saturdays every week. So, and buy a t-shirt. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're interested in finding out more about Matt Miller or are looking to buy some of his art, you can find access to that at artofmattmiller.com.
Awesome job, Tyler and Hayden. You guys did a great job with the interview. Finally, we're going to check in with Emily as she shows us some more watercolor techniques.
Hi, this is Emily from the Lowdown, and I have more watercolor techniques to share with you. We are going to start with laying down gouache paint, 3 different colors, red, purple, and blue. This needs to dry before you can apply watercolor. We are going to apply acrylic paint. We will be making a plant stem and a leaf as well, and another circle. Again, this needs to dry before you can apply watercolor to it. When you finally apply watercolor to the gouache paint, notice how the difference in textures draws your eyes to the page. As for the dark circle, we add black watercolor paint just to see how these 2 different textures of paint react to each other. Now when we add watercolor to the acrylic paint, the tulip I made with red watercolor really draws in the difference of textures. Next, we are going to lay down a dark and light color of watercolor paint, and while they are still wet on the page, we're going to drop peroxide on them to see how the paint reacts. Look at the little circles that form on top. This is a way to add a certain texture to your paintings. We are going to use watercolor pencil. I'm going to draw a little flower. And then I'm going to wet my paintbrush. Develops into a watercolor texture on the page. We have a light shade of watercolor without actually having to use watercolor paint. Watercolor pens are next on our list. We're going to make more plant stems with leaves. And then we're going to make a little flower on top with red watercolor, similar to a tulip. Watercolor pens are these type of pens that give the texture of watercolor paint without actually having to use watercolor paint. And these are 5 more watercolor techniques that you can use in your painting.
Great job, Emily. You and the team did an amazing job in your packages, and I'm super proud of you guys. If you guys want more content from the Lowdown, be sure to follow us on social media. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you guys want to see more content from the people we featured in this episode, be sure to check out our bio for their links. Again, my name was Ella Mitchell. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. That was the Lowdown.
This program was produced by ZTV at the University of Akron. Do you want to gain experience in video production, professional social media, or working with real clients? Visit the UA School of Communications online or follow us on social media to learn more. ZTV, make media, make a difference.